Hello, and welcome to the Movie Mouth Film and TV Podcast, a podcast about all things movie, TV, with the occasional restaurant review, and it really finds its voice on episode 46. On this week's show, we are getting spooky with the release of Jason Reitman's Ghostbusters Afterlife, the third film in the Movie Mouth favorite Ghostbusters franchise, and we'll be bringing you not only our verdict during the review session, but also a standalone bumper spoiler-filled discussion as its own show. In the review section, we also have watched Ryan Reynolds, Dwayne Johnson, and Gal Gadot in Movie Stars the Movie. Oops. No, sorry. It's Netflix's Red Notice. And Lady Gaga, Adam Driver, Jared Leto, and Al Pacino in Ridley Scott's House of Gucci. I got Gucci coming out of my fucking ears! All this, plus in our recurring video store corner classic film discussion, we sit down to watch a film chosen by you, our listeners, via an Instagram poll. Yes, lock up your automobiles. It's Emilio Estevez and Harry Dean Stanton's 1984 cult oddball classic, Repo Man. On top of it all, we'll be discussing the latest film news, trailer reactions, and throwing in as much movie geekery as you've come to expect from the Movie Mouth team. This is Miles, and as ever, I am joined by a man who once said, "Value your time in this life, kid, because this is the time in your life when you still have your choices, and it goes by so fast. When you're a teenager, you think you can do anything, and you do. Your 20s are a blur. Your 30s, you raise your family, you make a little money, and you think to yourself, what happened to my 20s? Your 40s, you grow a little pot belly, and you grow another chin. The music starts to get too loud, and one of your old girlfriends from high school becomes a grandmother. Your 50s, you have minor surgery. You call it a procedure, but it's a surgery. Your 60s, you have a major surgery. The music is still loud, but it doesn't matter because you can't hear it anyway. 70s, you and your wife retire to Fort Lauderdale. You start eating dinner at 2 in the afternoon, lunch around 10, breakfast the night before. And you spend most of your time wandering around malls looking for the ultimate in soft yogurt and muttering, how come the kids don't call? How come the kids don't call? By the 80s, you've had a major stroke. And you just end up babbling to some Jamaican nurse who your wife can't stand, but who you call mama. Any questions? It's Phil. Hi, Phil. How are you?
Oh, hi.
Name that movie. Can you name that movie?
I can't name the movie. What is it?
I'll give you one guess.
Oh, God.
Could you name the actor? It wasn't a great impression.
No.
Okay. Anyway, moving on.
I mean, all I know is that you're like incredibly proud of yourself that you did that in one go.
Yes, is the correct answer.
Aren't you? You're like screaming inside, like you're like, I fucking nailed it.
Because I ran through it once and I screwed it up at times.
Oh, right,
so
well,
I'm just happy
you
that
know,
I did it live.
pressure.
Well, you know,
you don't have
actually,
the red light syndrome, as they call it in the business.
I don't have red light syndrome, but it is hard when you remember these things. You know, I've just remembered that from scratch. It is, of course, Billy Crystal from City Slickers.
Oh my God! Yes, it is. Now I know. It's all clicking into place. It's all city slicking into space.
So, how have you been? Have you been city slicking this week?
I've just been. I've been busy. I've been a busy boy.
You have, haven't you?
Busy with work, busy with life, but I've done nothing as cool as you've been doing, have I? Because I know what you've been doing.
Hang on. Wait, what? I thought I turned my webcam off after the last podcast.
Oh, I can access that. You know I know.
And the microphone.
Yeah, and that as well.
Oh, dear God.
I'm the technical whiz in this operation. You should know that.
Well, technical whiz / pervert, it would appear.
But
voyeur.
Both, yeah. But I know exactly what you've been doing. You've been swanning around the New York area dressed as a Ghostbuster, haven't you?
Listen, at the end of the day, busting makes me feel good. And if you're going to bust ghosts, bust them in New York City, basically.
Well, 100%. Yeah, definitely.
I posted this on our Movie Mouth Instagram, but I don't know what it is. I maybe had some kind of brain aneurysm or have some kind of growth in my brain. But I woke up one day and I decided that I was going to go see an early preview of Jason Reitman's Ghostbusters Afterlife, dressed as a Ghostbuster in mostly screen accurate attire. Yeah. And I did it.
That's nothing to be ashamed of.
No, I don't know. I felt a little unusual.
If you didn't have a girlfriend, then
Yeah, that's true. The fact is that I still have a girlfriend.
She is still there.
She didn't leave me.
No,
she actually came with me. Is what she did.
Then
and held my hand through the hard moments.
What have you got to worry about when you were nervous about walking out of the apartment the first time?
Yep.
You were like, "Oh, I'm going to feel like a prick. Oh, fuck it, I'm doing it anyway."
Yes.
I hope.
So anyway.
In my mind, you had Cleaning Up the Town blasting on your phone, and you just ran out of your apartment.
100%.
Yeah.
So basically, I live, uptown in Manhattan, and I went to Times Square to see the movie, which was where the preview was, which is also the busiest place on earth. So if you're going to go be loud and proud, do it in Times Square,
do it in style.
Which is what I did. So I hopped down there. I actually got an Uber down there because I was late for the film, but just got in there. Yeah, it was annoying, actually. I was a bit annoyed because I wanted to walk around. But I was running through Times Square. The Uber dropped us off, and I was running through Times Square. And as I was running, I heard this crazy guy, come out of the subway station, and he must have just seen me run past him in full Ghostbusters attire with the proton pack, everything, a trap, everything, dangling off my belt. And he just started shouting, "Who you gonna call? Who you gonna call?" As I ran past him, and I was like, "Ghostbusters!" And then disappeared around the corner.
You were in the movie.
He thought he was
Saving the Day started playing in your head, didn't it?
Saving the Day. Yeah. And then it was weird because I got to the theater and went into the screening, and it was pitch black, sat down in the screening. So no one really knew that I was dressed as a Ghostbuster. And at that point, I felt really uncomfortable because I'm like, well, I've dressed up, and now I'm just sitting here in the dark dressed as a Ghostbuster, and no one really knew that I did that, And at the end of the movie, this woman turned next to me. She was there with her young son, and she turned next to me and she said, I saw the original film. It's one of my favorite movies. And I never imagined that I would see the latest Ghostbusters film sitting next to an actual Ghostbuster. And she's like, "Can I have a picture with you?" I was like, "Yeah." And I thought that was it. I thought that was the peak moment.
Yeah.
But no, because then I walked out into the lobby, and as it turned out, there were two other guys dressed as Ghostbusters in the same gear as me, which, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, you can find on Amazon. You can find everything that you need to create a decent Ghostbusters outfit on Amazon. All right, or probably somewhere else. But anyway, and I walked out, and they're wearing the same stuff, and they said, "Oh, I think we should get a picture together." I said, "Absolutely, we should." And we stood to get a picture, the three of us together, as everyone's exiting the cinema screen, and we were sitting there thinking, "Well, there's only three of us." All of a sudden, this massive tall guy in glasses walks out, dressed as Egon Spengler, and walks up to us and he says, "Do you mind if I join?" And we were like, "No, please. We need a fourth member. We need an Egon." And he's like, "Great." He joined us. And as we stood there were probably around 30 or 40 people who just wanted to get pictures with us and hang out with us. And we took a ton of pictures with people, and it was really fun. We met loads of cool Ghostbusters fans of all ages. And then decided to take the subway home. So I walked back through the busiest subway station in the world, which is the 42nd Street Times Square subway terminal. And people coming up to me on the platform, and you could see some people taking sneaky pictures. I was waving at some people and stood on the train on the way home. And that was it. I kind of got home. I was like, that was a real moment.
Yeah,
it was a real moment.
I wish I was
like a dream moment. I wish
that would have made it better, right? If I was there dressed as Ray.
100%. 100%.
And we were strutting down Times Square together.
Yeah,
the Ghostbusters walk from the video.
We could have just got married. Probably, that's how we get married, you and I.
Yeah.
You leave your wife, I leave my girlfriend. We'll just dress up as Ghostbusters, and
I would have the ring in a trap, so I'd throw it out and then press the button on the trap, and the ring would fly out.
Now that would be you would open the trap, and it would suck out all of my non-monogamy. That's what it would do. You would take my soul, basically.
Yeah.
You would take my soul, and that's marriage, guys. That's marriage. So anyway, moving on, we will talk about Ghostbusters Afterlife later in the podcast. But we're going to jump straight into the news, I think, Phil, if that's good with you.
Yes.
And, obviously, we just announced that we do have a Ghostbusters Afterlife spoiler special, which will be dropping very soon, probably not long after this episode. So if you have seen Ghostbusters Afterlife, it'll have all the spoilerific information about that movie. We are going to review it later in this episode, but we're not going to go into any spoilers whatsoever. We know what would spoil this movie, and we're not going to talk about any of that stuff. So please hold on for that. And, as ever, the spoiler special for Ghostbusters Afterlife will be available for free, as are all of our episodes, on all of your podcast player of choice very soon, and we will update that. Phil.
Yes.
The bees! The bees! You've got some news for us, haven't you?
I do. Sorry, I just got your link then. Yeah, all right. I'll start with that then. This is the news that Nicolas Cage is to star as Dracula in Universal monster movie Renfield. So, in this report, it says, in a deal signed with Vampire's Kiss, Cage is returning to a big studio movie and will play the meaty role of Dracula in Universal Pictures monster movie Renfield. Nicholas Hoult is starring as the titular character. The vampire Count's infamous acolyte and henchman in the feature directed by Chris McKay, the helmer behind Amazon's The Tomorrow War and the Lego Batman movie, both of which I am a fan of. So the character of Renfield is from Bram Stoker's 1897 novel Dracula, and he's a patient in an asylum with an obsession for drinking blood, deluded into thinking he will find immortality. I mean, if that is not a Nicolas Cage role, I really don't know what is.
I mean, he is immortal, isn't he? He can't be killed.
Well, yeah, I guess so. So, yeah, it's not loads of info out about this, but I'm excited.
I think what is, I mean, we're always excited for Nicolas Cage news. It's funny because we always talk about the movies he's going to be in, and I don't think I've seen any of them in recent memory.
No.
But this is his really return to major studio production, because it's been a while. I mean, he's been in a lot of indie movies and he's been picking up these kind of paychecks, but he is starring in a Universal monster movie, as you say, opposite Nicholas Hoult, who is a fairly big deal, in movie making these days. I think is interesting. I think it'd be great to see him, back in. I
think he'll make a good Dracula. I can picture him as Dracula.
Oh my! I mean, it's going to be incredible as Dracula. I'm definitely going to see this. I'm definitely going to see this. And
he's
speaking
going to be really
of
creepy.
Well, yeah, it is. He's definitely going to be creepy, especially if he's got a weird wig on, which he no doubt will have some kind of.
He's going to have the same
wig.
hair he had in Face Off.
Exactly the same, like a thin veil of hair.
Yeah, with
a misting of hair. But yeah, and talking about things getting sucked. Channing Tatum confirmed this week via Twitter that he'll be unzipping his pants and grinding his crotch in audiences' faces once more as Mike Lane in Magic Mike's Last Dance. But other than the obvious reasons, this is actually quite exciting for a few other reasons. Notably in the fact that Steven Soderbergh is returning to direct this after he directed the first one.
Yeah,
which is good. He obviously helmed the 2012 original, and then Gregory Jacobs directed the sequel, which was Magic Mike XXL in 2015. Gregory Jacobs is going to produce this one. This is also written by Reed Carolyn, who wrote the first two movies. And Channing Tatum also confirmed that this is going to be released for HBO Max, so it's going to be a straight-to-home release for those of you that have access to HBO Max in the US and around the world. Beyond that, there's very little else is known about it, but no doubt with the same people here also, making up very much a strong ensemble. I think it's good, and I actually really like the two Magic Mike movies. Strangely, very good. It's basically Rocky for strippers, is what it is.
Okay,
which
I
is
didn't even
what
know
they should have put
about,
on the poster.
If I'm honest.
Wow. Yeah. But yes, so get your pouch ready, Phil, and your little leather hat.
My posing pouch.
We're going back to the Magic Mike universe.
I'm going to dust off the posing pouch. Yeah.
So tell us about any trailers you've watched this week. Is anything fun?
Trailers. Well, yes. I don't know if I've been living under some sort of rock, but
Mostly,
I
yes.
saw the trailer for Nightmare Alley. So, and this is the new Guillermo del Toro film, which is hugely exciting. It's based on the 1946 novel of the same name, so Nightmare Alley, and the novel's by William Lindsay Gresham. So the film focuses on Stan Carlyle, who's played by Bradley Cooper, and he's an ambitious carny who hooks up with a corrupt psychiatrist, Dr. Lilith Ritter, played by Cate Blanchett, who proves to be more dangerous than he is. So this looks like... Have you seen the trailer for this? Have you seen
I
this?
have. I've seen it twice, actually.
It looks really cool, doesn't it? It looks pure Del Toro visually. It looks amazing. I love Del Toro's style. But I think it looks like quite a different type of story for him as well.
Well, I think you're right. It looks amazing. It's very visually striking, but I don't know what it's about from the trailer. And I remember I've seen this a couple of times in the cinema, and I've heard a few people kind of go, "What is that?"
I get that. I do get
it's
that.
It's an unusual trailer. It doesn't really give you any kind of consistent plot points to kind of follow, does it?
No. But Bradley Cooper, Cate Blanchett, Willem Dafoe, sorry, I always say William Dafoe, didn't I?
Call him Bill.
Bill Dafoe. Yeah. I don't know. I'm excited. I always like Del Toro stuff, so
yeah.
I'll be watching that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Yeah. I don't know. For me, the jury's out on it a little bit. I think they're kind of underselling it. You know, they're selling it on Del Toro's name and on a lot of the visuals. But I do just worry that maybe, I don't know, Del Toro for me can be quite hit and miss.
Right.
Late, I think he's obviously had quite a few more hits than misses, I would say.
Yeah.
But we shall see.
We shall see.
We shall see. We shall see. I think we'll move on into reviews. We'll jump straight into reviews because we've got a pretty packed schedule this week on the podcast. We've got a lot of stuff to go into. Yeah, and obviously, with a lot of big movie releases. I think there's only one place that we can really start, isn't there, with the movie reviews? I think we've waited. Yeah, I mean, we've waited long enough for this movie, haven't we? Like 30 years. And finally,
at least
30, at least. And finally, we've got Ryan Reynolds, Dwayne Johnson, and Gal Gadot in one movie. It's. I'm just joking. I'm just joking. I'm kidding. We'll get to that. Who are you going to call, Phil?
Ghostbusters.
It is absolutely Ghostbusters Afterlife. 32 years after stopping the despotic spirit or painting Vigo the Carpathian, Scourge of Carpathia, Ghostbusters have disbanded after a decline in supernatural activities in New York. Egon Spengler is relocated to Somerville, a small town in Oklahoma, where Gozerian cultist Ivo Shandor's mining operation is located. Egon captures a bestial entity from one of the mines, aiming to lure a more powerful entity to his farm and trap it. But when his final ghost bust goes wrong, it's up to Callie, Egon's estranged daughter, and her two children, Trevor and Phoebe, to find the truth about him and take down the evil that threatens humanity. Firstly, we will not spoil this movie beyond the description of it, which I plucked straight from the internet. And we will provide, as I said before, a full spoiler special at the end or following this episode so that you can check that out. We'll give you obviously plenty of warning on that episode as well. This film is lovingly and meticulously directed by son of the original two movies directors, Ivan Reitman, by Jason Reitman. Actually, he was actually on set during the first Ghostbusters film, if you remember, Phil. The big crowd scene, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Outside 450 Central Park West.
Yeah.
AKA Spook Central, Dana Barrett's apartment. We've been there.
Been there, haven't we? Stood outside, like nerds.
Yeah.
Loved it.
The traveller has come. Oh, yeah. So when I say lovingly and meticulously, this has got some really It's got a lot of callbacks to the original first Ghostbusters movie, I would say, and some to the second movie. It follows a very similar plot line to the original Ghostbusters movie to some extent. And again, not going into any spoilers on that. But it also delves into some really nice effects, a lot of practical effects that are used for some of the particular ghosts that you will recall from previous movies, and some CGI, but it is also still kind of lovingly presented. You will have seen the mini puffs in the trailer, the little Stay Puft Marshmallow Men in the scene with Paul Rudd, and the new ghost Muncher in this, who Muncher, who's kind of a Slimer kind of replacement, except he eats metal, and he's pretty cool. I quite liked him.
I like him.
He was also interestingly voiced by Josh Gad, which
really,
yeah, which isn't really spoken about, but yeah, he was the voice of Muncher. One thing that's always disconcerting, as seen with Sony's misfiring all-female Ghostbusters in 2016, is a new cast of characters coming in to bust some ghosts in the place of 4 absolutely irreplaceable actors from the original 2 movies. And the secret of Ghostbusters Afterlife's success is its casting, with casting director John Papsidera, no stranger to casting unknown young actors in films such as Dunkirk, for example. Here bringing together McKenna Grace as Phoebe and Stranger Things' Finn Wolfhard as Trevor, and also the amazing and spirited Logan Kim as Podcast, who might just be the MVP of this movie. I don't know, but I think he's brilliant, especially as 2 podcasters talking about a fellow podcaster.
After our own heart.
Absolutely. It's very rare for me to personally enjoy a movie that's being semi-rebooted with a newcomer cast like this. But I think that these 3 kind of coming into this movie are a triumph. More interesting still is the fact that Jason Reitman gives more screen time to the youngest members of the cast, say, than the more recognized Finn Wolfhard from Stranger Things. I thought that was quite an interesting move, quite a bold move. And it works, for me, it works really well. McKenna Grace is a revelation. I think she's going to be a huge star. And she really pulls off this very, very central role as a kind of, young, knowing, nerdy kid that's moved to a new town. Think kind of the first Karate Kid movie, single mom moving her kids across to another place, fish out of water, that kind of story. And she carries that off really well. Another favorite element is how it doesn't kind of re-explain a lot of the Ghostbusters mythology, equipment, and things like that. They touch on some of these points, how, again, you will have seen in the trailer that Phoebe finds a proton pack. You will have seen a ghost trap in the trailer. It doesn't go to any length to explain what these things are, making it laborious and boring and just retreading the same path. You just kind of figure it out along the way, and it lets you figure it out along the way, which I think is a really nice move. And of course, that ending, which again, I will not say anything about other than it's emotional, fist clenching, tear swelling punch in the gut of an ending. And just remember as well, guys, to stick around for both post-credit scenes this time, because there are 2. And the more you talk about this movie, the more you run the risk of spoiling it. So I'll save it for the spoiler discussion. But I have to say, I absolutely love this. Critics have given this really heartless and pummeling reviews. It hasn't performed very well in terms of the actual critic. But that's not really who the audience is here. And I actually saw this twice in theaters. Once in a packed early preview, which was just a full house when I was dressed as a full-on Ghostbuster. And the second time in an almost empty screening in the middle of the day, save for me and 3 other middle-aged guys, all watching the boldest love letter to a movie which filled our youth with so much joy and scares to some extent, even if there's nothing as shit your pants scary as the library ghost in this film. But at the end of the day, what other critics have failed to see is that busting still makes you feel good. Phil, what did you think?
I can't agree with you more. Yeah, it was. I think it was just exactly what we were hoping for, and after we can call it a disaster of a third Ghostbusters film. Yeah, I think it was just what it was just what the doctor ordered, and especially because it was on the cards for so long and then delayed. But I'm glad that he delayed it by, it was like a year, wasn't it? It was like another year's delay. That apparently, I think they said that it was because he was like refining the cut of it or whatever. But I also think it was probably just because they wanted to hang around until it could be released properly. In cinemas, with an audience for a release as big as that, one that's been built up as much as that one. So, but yeah, I absolutely loved it. Can't agree more with the things you said. And as you said, it's hard to talk about it without spoiling it. So I'm not going to. I think you should go and watch it.
Go and watch it, folks. Ghostbusters Afterlife is available in theaters now and gets a huge recommendation from both of us at the Movie Mouth podcast. Phil, I know you're really excited to talk about this one. It's Netflix's Red Notice. Tell us about it.
It is. Well, so apparently this is Netflix's most expensive original film to date. It's an action adventure blockbuster that's basically a cross between National Treasure, Indiana Jones, Mission Impossible, and with a bit of Rush Hour thrown in.
So super original is what you're trying to say. It's a very original premise.
Yeah. So you can tell that they've flashed the cash because this stars three of Hollywood's biggest names pretty much at the moment in Dwayne Johnson, Ryan Reynolds, and Gal Gadot. Does this, though, Miles, and I know you know the answer as you've also seen it, make it a surefire hit? Well, clearly not, as this is pretty much a giant steaming pile of poop. It's like, to summarize the plot, Dwayne Johnson plays an FBI profiler called John Hartley, who specializes in fine art crime, as you would, whatever, and is forced to team up with the world's second best art thief, Ryan Reynolds, to stop the best, Gal Gadot, from stealing.
Because, of course, there's a league table of art thieves in the world, and they're all ranked according to how many heists they've completed.
And basically, he's trying to stop the theft of an ancient Egyptian golden egg that once belonged to Cleopatra. Yes, it's as ridiculous as it sounds, and that's fine. But because I wasn't really expecting anything more from this after seeing the trailer. So to give the film and cast its due, I did find it entertaining enough to keep me watching it, just about. But it has got some genuinely funny dialogue and scenes. Mostly from Ryan Reynolds. It's just playing Ryan Reynolds, and I think the performances that were put into it suit the roles well for obviously what they envisaged. It's, as I said, it's Ryan Reynolds doing Ryan Reynolds. It's Dwayne Johnson doing Dwayne Johnson, and there's some all right action in it as well, I suppose. But it's just painfully unimaginative and predictable. It's also too long. It's just under 2 hours long. It's way too long. It went on it felt like it was too long. And I think that the fact for me was that it's so heavily green screened for a lot of the film. Like, you can tell that the actors aren't in the place that they are for most of the film. It's a bit, and it's quite distracting because I tend to pick up on things like that just because I look for them, because I'm sad like that. I look for those kind of things in films. I love the technical aspects of filmmaking and visual effects and things like that. And so I can notice when it sort of takes you out of it a bit when it's that obvious. Not that it like looks bad. It's just that
it was unbearable.
Yeah,
it was unbearable from the very opening scene where they're supposed to be in Italy to a scene where they're supposed to be in Paris. And it was awful. Yeah. But I don't know how much of it was their fault and how much of it was COVID, because this film was completed during the pandemic.
It was a while ago. Yeah. I think the biggest distraction for me, though, however, and one that I found equally equally baffling and hilarious, was the fact that they decided to tell the main bad guy to do the voice in like the strangest accent you've ever heard. He's basically quite a young guy. Like, what's his name? It's Chris Diamantopoulos.
Look at this old pistol that I've got
Yeah,
here.
he basically
It's
sounds...
a pistol that I like to do. Would you like a cup of tea? I'm going to electrocute your testicles right now.
Yeah, he sounds like a cross between Gandalf the Grey and Abraham Simpson. It's just like, why did they give that character? Like, you look at that guy, that voice does not suit that character. He sounds like an old man.
He does.
I'd like to strangle you, my boy. I'm going to strangle you good until you die. It's just, I've filled with pot beans. It's just insane. It's absolutely insane. And it was odd as fuck, basically. I couldn't get over it, how such an odd decision was made for that. But it made it more entertaining, so fair enough. So, yeah, if you want to watch big budget stars in a big budget movie not doing a particularly good job or anything memorable, go and watch Red Notice. It's on Netflix. It is the kind of film, and I say this a lot, it's the kind of film you can just stick it on. You don't have to worry about concentrating on it. Because if you did, it would make you a bit angry how shit it is. So yeah, I'm not going to recommend it, but it's entertaining enough, just about, to be viewable. I think Miles is screwing up his face in disgust.
I'm screaming inside, but I agree with everything you said. To be honest, I hated it with a passion. I think it took me 4 watches to get through the whole 2 and a bit hours.
You prolonged
this. I wanted to drag the TV up the avenue near my apartment into Central Park and just swing it around my head like Crocodile Dundee with that thing. I hated it, and I even that one thing I would disagree with you on, and it's just a disagreement. It's not, it's not a decision. But I found even Ryan Reynolds, I think he's getting old hat now with the same shtick. And it was like, as you say, you were totally right. It was Ryan Reynolds playing Ryan Reynolds and The Rock playing The Rock. But come on, man. Like, it was just gratuitous. It was just too much. And it was just whip sharp, dialogue, which it never ends. And it's just...
It's relentless.
Relentless.
Plus
there were no standout jokey moments. I can't remember anything. I remember something about him saying, why are you wearing a hairnet? You're bald,
Yeah. No, there's a few lines that made me laugh. There's a big, and I suppose it was done on purpose, clearly, but the big advert for Ryan Reynolds' gin company.
Both of them. There was a Aviator gin, and there was a Dwayne Johnson's liquor in there as well.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was a bit cynical, I think, of Netflix to say, okay, we're going to take 200 million. We're going to find these 3, hot box office hits right now. Probably the 3 biggest box office hits, right now in terms of actors. Put them in a movie that we don't really have a plot, and we're just going to figure out a movie and
throw it together in a mush.
And anything we don't have, we'll just create it from scratch and we'll green screen it.
And when they don't have run out of ideas, they just copy Indiana Jones.
Yeah, and then they bring in,
hello there, hello. I'm going to strangle you. Electrocate. This is the way I like to kill people. It's strangling you with a black glove.
I'm a young-looking man, but I speak like this.
I'm 37 years old, but I speak like this. You see. And I've fallen.
Respiratory problems.
I've fallen. Call my son.
I'm eating a cherry tomato atop of Minas Tirith.
The steward of Gondor. Faramir is such a disappointment.
I popped that cherry tomato like an eyeball.
I popped it like a fucking grape.
Terrible. Anyway, moving on from one classic to another. Yes, it's another Ridley Scott movie, following on from the last Duel that we reviewed last week, which was the Matt Damon, Ben Affleck starring medieval romp. This is House of Gucci. So this is when based on a true story. If you've seen the trailer for it, pretty fun looking trailer. This is based on a book actually of the same name, and which is obviously based on the true story. This sees Patrizia Reggiani, played by Lady Gaga, an outsider from humble beginnings, who marries Adam Driver's Maurizio Gucci, and ultimately marries into the Gucci luxury brand family. Her unbridled ambition begins to unravel their legacy and triggers a reckless spiral of betrayal, decadence, revenge, and ultimately murder. Where can I start? I'm going to start on the cast, because that's probably the big selling point here, is that there's an awesome ensemble. So you've got Lady Gaga, who obviously is, coming back to quote unquote serious acting. Again, Adam Driver, who was also in The Last Duel, Scott's previous film, who is, I think, both of whom, by the way, are very, very good in this film. Lady Gaga probably more of a standout. They're joined by an ensemble which includes Jeremy Irons, Al Pacino. You've even got Jared Leto in here. So it's a really bold cast. They've gone all out with the cast. Probably the biggest selling point, probably the thing that is most of interest to most people, I think, with this story. When you talk about the cast, you talk about some incredible character actors, and Lady Gaga. We don't really know what she is yet, but she's definitely forging her way in Hollywood. Mm-hmm. And really, the one issue with this cast is the accents. So this is clearly a story about an Italian family in Italy, played by the majority of which are Americans, who all decide to do Italian accents while speaking English, which is, to some extent, off-putting.
Mario.
I mean, yeah, you're not far from it.
No.
Let's go. You're not far from it. Some of whom get away with it. Adam Driver, you can imagine, gets away with it as an awesome character actor. Lady Gaga, she drifts from Milan to Moscow, I would say, with her accent. And Jared Leto, who turns up in the most bizarre bald head comb-over prosthesis, and goes off on these bizarre tangential monologues about nothing. For example, did I ever tell you the story of two mooses? The two moose, they fall into the bucket of the cream, and the moose, pero the hardest, it's like this through the whole fucking movie. And
wow.
I was honestly sitting there. Every time Jared Leto was on screen, I was grimacing. I went with my girlfriend to watch this, and she was looking at me laughing every time Jared Leto came on screen, because I was just cringing. I was in my seat. I was like cringing, like someone had injected my spine with VX gas. I was just
convulsing.
I was convulsing. I was physically recoiling in my chair. I was folding in half.
Yeah.
Jared Leto appears to be in a different movie. I don't really know whether this movie is a serious movie or whether it's a comedy or what. But I can tell you that Jared Leto comes into this, and he is Tom Cruise in Tropic Thunder.
Well, it's funny you say that, because when you said about the bald comb over thing and then being a bit out there, I thought that's it. That's exactly who sprang to mind.
It's so bizarre. You're watching like Al Pacino and all these other serious actors, Adam Driver, have a serious conversation, and then fucking Jared Leto walks in a bald cap with a comb over and an orange peel nose and a bright purple suit, going, "There's mooses on the floor. There's mooses on the floor." Yeah, and you're just like, what is this film? So
what's happening?
Because the tone is all over the place, it makes it a fairly uncomfortable watch. But it's also a very watchable film. It's something about it. It's like watching a slow motion car wreck. It's like watching two cars collide at different speeds and watching everything happen at the same time. And it's beautiful and crazy and weird at the same time.
Wow.
In the words of the Gucci brand revitalizer Tom Ford, who is portrayed in this movie and, of course, is a film director in his own right and runs his own brand. He said that he laughed a lot, even though he wasn't sure if that was the idea of the movie. This movie could end up being a really camp cult classic. But for now, while the dust is still settling for me, unfortunately, I have to give it a miss. But watch it. I'm not saying you shouldn't watch it. I'm saying maybe watch it, but I'm not saying I can recommend it as a movie.
Okay.
But
I've got to admit, when I saw the trailer for it, I think I saw the trailer for it before I went to see No Time to Die, and I was just like, it's Ridley Scott and it's Pacino and it's all those amazing actors, and I've got no desire to see it at all.
Interesting.
Yeah, because I'm not. Yeah, it was just of a subject that I wouldn't necessarily be interested in. That's not, it's not to say like, I don't find films interesting about subjects I'm not into, but I wasn't like, wow, I've got to see that. And normally anything with Ridley Scott's name on it, I want to see it. Yeah, bit weird.
I think you're right. I think there's a lot of marketing around this. I think it's been somewhat a hit because of the marketing and the marketability of the cast. As you say, it looks great. It's shot really well. Cinematography is awesome. The locations are awesome. Watching a movie like Red Notice and you've got fucking the Louvre green screen behind Dwayne Johnson's giant head. You're not really, you're not really in the movie. This is in Italy and it's in the Alps and it looks great. There's some great stuff here. The outfits are cool, all that stuff. And it is, it's a well put together movie. It's not to say, by me as someone that doesn't make films, that it's, that it was all in vain. It's a bad movie. It's just a very strange toned movie, which I think doesn't have a lot to say so much, really. You're just following this story. And ultimately, it falls foul of a very big issue that a lot of Hollywood films have these days, which is none of the cast, none of the actors, none of the characters are likable by any stretch. And therefore, there's no true protagonist or antagonist. You're just watching a bunch of people that you don't really like hate each other, and ultimately someone kills somebody. So that's House of Gucci. That's available in theaters, cinemas worldwide right now. Make up your own mind if you're that way inclined. But I think by far and away, film of the week this week, Phil, Ghostbusters Afterlife.
By a long way.
By a long stretch. Well, speaking of incredible films, Phil, I think it's time for this, isn't it? Okay, so for our new listeners, Video Store Corner is our classic film discussion section where we'd like to rent a movie, quote unquote, from the video store era and sit down to watch it, just like back in the old days. And then we discuss it in a spoiler-filled discussion. We release our Video Store Corner picks each week on our Instagram account to give you a little time to watch it so that you can watch along with us in anticipation of the podcast. So head on over to our Instagram and search for @MovieMouthPodcast and hit follow to be alerted to when we're announcing the next Video Store Corner movies that you, the listener, can choose to vote on. And for that, a big thank you to our subscribers for their verdict on our Instagram poll for this particular issue of the Video Store Corner. This movie won by a majority of 70% to 30% against Stephen King's car-born horror, Christine. Phil, what the hell did we watch this week?
I'm still trying to work that one out. So we watched 1984's Repo Man, which I think I'd not seen it before. Had you seen it before?
Absolutely not.
Right. Okay.
I still don't know if I have seen it.
You would have remembered. Right. Let me give you the plot. Stick with me here, listeners.
Hold on to your butts.
Frustrated punk rocker Otto quits his supermarket job after slugging a co-worker, and is later dumped by his girlfriend at a party. Wandering the streets in frustration, he is recruited in the repossession of a car by a repo agent. After discovering his parents have donated his college fund to a televangelist, he joins the repossession agency called the Helping Hand Acceptance Corporation as an apprenticed repo man. During his training, he is introduced into the mercenary and paranoid world of the drivers, befriended by a UFO conspiracy theorist, confronted by rival repo agents, and discovers some of his one-time friends have turned to a life of crime. He is lectured to near cosmic unconsciousness by the repo agency groundsworker and finds himself entangled in a web of intrigue concerning a huge repossession bounty on a 1964 Chevy Malibu, driven by a lunatic government scientist with top secret cargo in the trunk. I mean, wow.
Mm-hmm. I think I like how IMDb has the description of this. It sums it up, but it definitely doesn't make it. I think it makes it more watchable than what you've just said, because what you just said is madness. It's unbridled
It's absolute
madness. It's madness. A young punk recruited by a car repossession agency finds himself in pursuit of a Chevy Malibu that is wanted for a $20,000 bounty and has something otherworldly stashed in its trunk.
Yeah, see, that makes it sound more intriguing.
It does. But what you've just done is you've explained how madcap, balls to the wall insane the movie Repo Man.
I've told you what it's actually about. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was a surprising film, wasn't it?
Yeah.
There was a lot of, it was.
I didn't understand what was going on. Well, no, it was not that. It's just that I was shocked at
what it was about.
Yeah.
What it was.
Because it's a comedy. It's a comedy, but by a long way, isn't it? But it's very odd. It's just an odd is the word. It's my review of this film. Odd.
Yeah. Is it a comedy? Is it a comedy?
Yeah.
Or is it just, it's just batshit insane? Like it's just
no, there's some really
I don't think I've
bits
ever seen a movie like this. It somehow manages to have a consistent through thread line of a plot, and grounded plot, but then also just be completely insane. It kind of reminded me a little bit of like some of the weirder like Oliver Stone movies, like U-Turn, and that one with Fassbender. You know, no, not the one with Fassbender, the one with Aaron Taylor Johnson. Like those kind of weird Oliver Stone movies that are a little bit neon glow, a little neon tinge to them.
Yeah, I'll tell you what it reminded me of. It reminded me of They Live.
Do you know what? It's funny you say that because I always mix this up with They Live, from the poster to the plot to everything. It's definitely along that. I always kind of thought I'd seen this, but it was actually just They Live. Do you know what I mean? It looks like a very similar cover.
Yeah, and it's got that weird like, and I think I've actually got a little bit of trivia about that later, but there's that weird like theme running throughout it that like all the products in it are like just named like
own
plainly,
brand.
Yeah, like on like it's like Tesco value stuff. Like thing. Yeah. So and there's that brilliant bit where he's like, "Do you want to go and get a drink?" And he's like, "Yeah." And then like they're in the off license, and he's just got a 6-pack of drink.
Yeah,
like each can says drink on it. That's it.
Yeah. That was a standout. That was a brilliant moment. That's when I knew this film's trying to bring you into the joke, bring you into the humor of it.
Yeah.
But it had a lot to say, didn't it, about consumerism, about Reagan's America, you know, about, you know, street punks, about the disenfranchised youth. You know, a lot of the characters in this are disenfranchised youth. There are these punks, you know, there are these there's this girl, female conspiracy theorist, you know, interested in aliens, Layla. You know, obviously Otto, Emilio Estevez himself, you know, he's kind of a punk, but he tries to kind of go on the straight and narrow, but really being a repo man is almost a kind of criminal activity of sorts to some extent.
Yeah.
You know, and I thought that was quite interesting. And then you have a lot of the paranoia of, you know, the kind of Cold War era US, where it comes down to, you know, aliens and UFOs and mad scientists and all that kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
There's even kind of a Grease reference in it where two cars are kind of driving through one of the aqueduct or viaduct.
It's like, yeah, it's like the
LA
drain,
River,
like,
anyway.
Yeah,
the LA River, like, that you've seen in Grease, you've seen it in
drainage.
Terminator 2.
Yeah.
It's called the LA River, and they're driving a lot through there, and they go up on the banks and all that kind of thing, and it references that. Yeah, I don't have many feelings on this film. I have to say, it's not a movie that really made me feel anything, except, you know, to some extent, some wonderful visual moments and a really great soundtrack. I have to say,
Yeah,
that I
really good
absolutely
soundtrack.
loved. Yeah. But you know, I think for me the big payoff in this movie, it's one of those movies where it's hard to really remember the plot apart from the very last scene. For example, Little Miss Sunshine, with the Little Miss Sunshine dance, you know, the Rick James dance, you know, when they're doing all the family gets up on the stage and dances in Little Miss Sunshine, or Step Brothers with the Catalina wine, Catalina wine mixer, yeah, with the boats and hoes, you know, Prestige Worldwide thing. This movie for me is all about the end, because what is really a kind of crime gang based, like Warriors-esque movie about these different, you know, repo men and street punks and these Latin brothers and these CIA agents and mad scientists all kind of converging together at the end of this movie. What this film gives you is one of the most bizarre ends to a movie I think you will ever see.
Absolutely. Like, I would love to see a screenshot of my face for the last like 5 minutes of this film, because it would be just sheer confusion and wonderment.
Mm-hmm. The plot revolves around, as we said, this Chevy Malibu, which there are flyers all around the city for a $20,000 bounty on it, and everyone keeps bringing it up. $20,000 for a car, for a Chevy Malibu? Oh, it's a joke, you know. And they find this car at the end of the movie, and for no apparent reason, it's glowing green, completely glowing green. It's never fully explained. Well, I mean, you kind of alluded to what happens. And there's one character who was my favorite character in this. This was, I'll try to remember the character's name, was Miller, who was the kind of the groundskeeper on the repossession lot that they all worked on, played by Tracy Walter.
From
Conan. He was also Bob, the henchman Bob from Tim Burton's Batman. Remember Bob?
Oh God,
Bob
yeah, he
Gunn.
was.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow.
So he has this whole monologue about conspiracy theories. I thought it was brilliant. That whole scene was brilliant.
It was really good in front of the fire, like the oil can, like
fire
thing, where he's throwing like straw hats in the fire.
Yeah, random
why?
shit.
Why is he throwing these clothes in there? Anyway,
so bizarre. Yeah. Like he's killed someone or something, and he's just thrown it all in. I guess it's the stuff from the cars or whatever.
Yeah,
that they've repossessed. But yeah, and he goes off on this kind of wild tangent about, you know, this, that, and the other, about consciousness, shared consciousness, and all that kind of thing. And he tells a story about how he doesn't drive because driving makes you stupid. So he takes the bus everywhere he goes, so he has time to think, which I quite liked, actually. I think there's a little bit of truth in that. When you drive, you kind of switch off, don't you? You kind of become one with the machine, and you just follow the road. So weirdly, it was unusual at the end of the movie because he, for no apparent reason, walks over to this glowing green car, climbs in it, and gets Emilio Estevez to come in, and turns around, and Emilio Estevez says to him, you know, Miller, I didn't think you could drive. And he just kind of motions him to get in the car. And the car then takes off. It levitates for a moment and then flies around the city of Los Angeles. And there's some really bad effects. Really, 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 really bad effects. Yes. of
It's
green
terrible.
screen, of like a rear projection of this car, and you see this car kind of, there was like a model of this car just like flying. It's like a 2D cutout almost, neon cutout of this car just flying around. And then close-ups of Emilio Estevez with a fan blowing his hair, and the city from a completely weird and different angle behind him, like looking down on the city, but he's kind of looking outwards. Really weird. And then the car apparently goes into deep space.
Yeah.
and then the credits roll.
Yeah. I just don't know. It's hard to know what to say about this. It really is, because it's so weird. Like, there's a lot of things I really like about it, like weird little like things. Like, I like that you know, like the guys in the hazmat suits that are like that work for the government or whatever, that are trying to clear up after they're trying to find the car, and they're clearing up the mess after after it's traveled through places or whatever. I love the fact that you can hear what those guys are saying in that sort of like through the mask type sound. That they're like muttering all the time, those guys. And then you've got the weird like agent woman that's got an inexplicable metal hand that just looks
She's always got a screwdriver fixing something on it.
Yeah. She's got a metal hand for some reason. And then you've got like at the the repo yard, you've got like the characters that are based there, and you've got like this copper that's there all the time. That's like completely,
but they all hate. He's an absolute asshole.
They all hate, and he's just like, there's that weird scene where Otto like he says like "fuck you," and then he goes on this massive rant about fighting in wars, and like he doesn't earn the right to tell him to go fuck himself.
So weird.
It's really odd. And then then you've got that weird scene where there's like the shootout in the shop with like his punk friends, who's like an awful actor, by the way. The guy with the skinhead.
The bald guy. Yeah.
Awful actor. Like really terrible. I mean, I have got some trivia for this. Do you want to hear some?
Yeah, go on then.
All right. So, no special effects were used to make the Chevy Malibu glow while parked at the repossession lot. Instead, the car was completely coated with 3M reflective paint. At an approximate price of $600 per bucket.
Absolutely amazing.
Believe it or not, the company that makes the what are they called, like the Christmas tree air fresheners, what are they called?
The Magic Tree.
Magic Tree, yeah. They were a sponsor of the film, believe it or not, considering they're featured heavily in the film.
Yep.
This is a fun one. When filming began, they only had one 1964 Chevy Malibu. It was stolen a couple of days into filming, forcing the film crew to scramble to find a replacement. Shortly after finding a replacement, the original was recovered by the police undamaged. This was fortunate timing because about a day later, Fox Harris severely damaged one of the Malibus by accident plowing into a gasoline pump. In the car wash scene, one of the gas pumps is clearly severely dented up and damaged. This is the pump Fox plowed into in a previous take.
That's crazy.
Yes, this is about the metal hand. Agent Rogers is supposed to have a cybernetic metallic arm. Due to the low budget of the film, the producers were unable to come up with a convincing prop arm. Her arm in the film appears to be nothing more than a glove made out of metal threaded cloth. The cheap effect confused numerous viewers as to why other characters in the film were so fascinated by her glove.
What?
Because there's that weird scene in the restaurant when like he meets up with her and the girl, and Otto's in there, and then their punk friends come in, and she just like licks her glove.
Honestly, I had no idea what was going on. I'm not gonna lie, I was very hungover when I watched this film, and I was even more confused.
So relating to the products, like all of the products used in the movie are generic, notable for their blue stripe on white packaging and black text. The filmmakers were satirizing a real-life growing trend in American grocery stores at the time, where because of the sluggish 1980s economy, actual generic white packaged foods were popular. The blue stripe seen in the movie is taken from a real-life blue stripe generic beer can that was sold by Southern California's Ralph's supermarkets. The filmmakers chose to mock this as showing how banal American life had become in the early 80s, including making up their own generic foods like food meat flavored dry gin and drink, because these products had no advertising and quietly left supermarket shelves by the 1990s. Many modern viewers of this film thinks that Alex Cox, who's the director, made up the generic food idea himself.
I think it's a really interesting move, and I think that this movie probably has a lot more to say than I think one viewing of, you know, a hungover podcast co-host and probably you after a couple of beers. Actually, you know, there's a little bit more depth to it. I think it's also interesting that, you know, you talk about Alex Cox, the director, the writer. He's British, and I think that I found this to be a real slab of Americana, of a, you know, a subculture of the 1980s America, portrayed as if, you know, this is someone that grew up like this, you know. So I found that quite interesting. And interesting, I just looked up Alex Cox. He's actually originally from Liverpool in the UK, which I think is probably, you know, a city that had its fair share of punk rock movement in the 70s and, you know, that kind of thing. So he probably, you know, he's probably, you know, writing from the heart and repurposing it. But I definitely it had a lot to say about, I think, America, I think, and that was, I think there was definitely something really interesting there. I think because it's kind of speckled with these moments of bizarreness and comedy and, you know, just crazy scenes of things that are happening. And everything's overblown, isn't it? It's super over the top.
Yeah.
I think that it makes it kind of dumbs down a lot of the message that maybe they were trying to get across.
Yeah, maybe.
But not to be a critic about this movie, because this is it's a fun movie.
Yeah.
You know, to watch. It's like you don't know what you're watching, but it's fun. It's a bit of a fever dream of a movie, you know.
Yeah.
And if you like those kind of weird, you know, 80s action type movies, you know, like They Live, for example, then you probably find something here in this to enjoy. I think it's a movie that probably should be studied, you know, to you know, by more intelligent people than us, to kind of get something out of it. But yeah, I don't know whether I really enjoyed it personally. Maybe it was just the wrong time. Maybe I needed to, you know, spark up a giant bong full of marijuana and just sit and watch this movie. It probably would have made more sense. I did quite like the fact that Napoleon Dynamite appeared to be in this film.
Oh yeah.
There's
that
one
weird
guy in
scene
this.
at the end where he's on the hospital bed and like he's like dead and he moves the cloth and he's like, oh no.
Doesn't he go?
It's really weird. Did you notice that?
Yeah, he says
So
hello,
weird.
doesn't he?
Yeah, something like that. It's
So
very
weird.
Yeah. Did you know that Lance Henriksen was a front runner for the part of the lobotomized driver of the Chevy Malibu?
Oh, really?
Yeah, imagine that.
That's funny.
And Dennis Hopper was considered for the role of Bud.
Yeah, that was played by the awesome Harry Dean Stanton, who's generally really good in everything that he was in. Obviously, sadly passed away. He's pretty well known for being in Twin Peaks and what else? Alien, he was in, wasn't he?
Yeah,
Brett from Alien. So you know,
he's good at this.
He's good in this. You know, because I like some of his stuff. You know, when he kind of goes off the rails after he gets fired from the repossession lot and all that kind of thing. That was pretty fun. But yeah, in the most part, an entertaining. I would say it's an entertaining film. Phil.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think if you want to watch something very different to probably most things you've seen before, you should watch it. Yeah. I agree. It's good fun, definitely.
Yeah, it's at the opposite end of the spectrum to Red Notice. When you say,
yeah, just a bit. Yeah.
All right then. So, where can the listeners watch Repo Man in the UK, Phil?
It is available to rent on Amazon and on Apple TV, I believe, and a lot of the streaming services is available to rent. I rented it from Amazon.
That's the same here in the US. It's not currently available on any of the regular streamers, but $3.99 on Apple TV or Amazon Prime. You can rent that, watch that, and generally go insane while you watch it. Repo Man, Video Store Corner. Thank you, listeners, for voting for that one. And we'll be back on the next episode, of course, where we're going to throw up some couple more suggestions for you guys to vote on. But before then, join us on the next Movie Mouth podcast slice of movie and TV related fun, which will be our Ghostbusters Afterlife standalone spoiler special. But before then, please follow our Facebook and Instagram accounts at Movie Mouth Podcast and hit subscribe or give us a nice 5-star review on your podcast player of choice. Phil.
Yes.
There is just one last thing to say, isn't there? And you're going to say it. You're going to sing us out, aren't you, with this one? Finally. After you.
No.
I think you should sing just a little bit.
No.
Come on, you've never sung us out. Just sing us out once.
No. I perform for you.
I'm not your performing monkey. All right. Well, if you're going to be like that, I'll say it then, shall I?
Yeah, you do.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.